Welcome to Photoshop Chapter 1, working with selections, and we're going to start off our first lesson. Well, first of all, let's talk about how Photoshop has a variety of selection tools so that you can select parts of an image. And your selection tools are all gathered here in this area. Obviously, like with every type of software of this nature, you have a general, the grab tool, the pointer tool, the move tool. In this case, it's the move tool. And our selection tools are right underneath that. And you have, there are three basic ones, but notice that each one, if you click and hold in the toolbox, you have several within each tool, each selection tool. For instance, the rectangular marquee tool is also the elliptical marquee tool, the single row marquee tool, and the single column marquee tool. And then we have, we're going to put that back to our rectangle, we have our lasso tool, the polygonal lasso tool, and the magnetic lasso tool. And then finally we have our quick selection tool and our magic wand tool. So the first thing we're going to do is we want to open a picture just so that we can do some selections to show you how these work. Let's talk about our selection tools. In Photoshop, you want to be sure to choose the right tool for the job. So each tool is designed to offer the user a means of making a selection that's best, the easiest way. For instance, the rectangular marquee obviously selects square or rectangular areas, and the elliptical, round, or circular, elliptical type areas. Now the lasso tool, it's used to select irregularly shaped curving areas, and the polygonal lasso is used to select irregularly shaped areas that are made up of straight lines. The magnetic lasso selects areas where the edges contrast with the abutting area. And the quick selection tool, it automatically detects and selects areas based on defined edges in the image, while the magic wand tool selects areas that contrast with other image areas in color. So we're going to start, of course, with our rectangular and elliptical marquee tool. Now, let's say that we want to select just the window here. Well, that seems pretty easy because we're just going to click on our tool, and then we're going to come over here and we're going to simply drag, click, hold, and drag, and we can select our window. Now, obviously I've missed the corner here because this photo is at a certain angle, but you get the gist of what I'm saying here. Now, I can take and select this and move it around. I can also make a perfect square by pressing Shift while I drag. So let's watch that. If I want to deselect, let's say I selected it, I messed up, so I can either go up and go Select, Deselect, or I can hit Control D on my keyboard and it deselects. Now, we're going to try this again, but this time we want to make a perfect square. So I'm going to hold down my Shift key, and then I'm going to drag, and it will make a perfect square. I can also select from the center outward. Let me Control D or deselect again, by simply making use of my Alt key. So I hold down the Alt key, and now my square is going to come from the center and go out, as opposed to starting from one edge like I did before. Let's watch that again. Deselect. Now this is regular. I start from one edge and go to the other. But if I hold my Alt key, it comes from the center of the cursor. And then finally, to move the marquee while I'm creating it, I can press my space bar. So if I'm, let's say I start and I say, oh my goodness, I want to kind of come down here a little bit, I just hold the space bar down and then let go, and I can drag from there. I just hold my toolbox. I go to my toolbox, hold the tool for the rectangular marquee down, and choose elliptical. And now I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to start my circle. Now look, I'm off a little bit, but that's okay because I can move it over, and there you have it. And the same options work with the circular or the elliptical marquee tool, because all I have to do is, again, deselect, so I can Control D or go again to select, deselect, and I can hold my Shift key down, and it will draw a perfect circle every time. There's my perfect circle. Now I can hold my Alt key down, and my circle will come from the center, which, if you notice, with something like this, actually that would be a time saver if I got right in the center here. Hold my Alt key, because then it's going to help me to better make my selection more precise quicker. I don't have to make any adjustments. And then finally, the space bar. I start, oh my goodness, I should have moved down, just hit the space bar and then continue dragging to make your selection. And then once I'm there, I can adjust and move whatever I need to do. Now we're going to try our lasso tool. Remember, the lasso tool is best used when you're trying to select irregularly shaped areas. So I go over to my toolbox and I select my lasso tool. And then I'm just going to freehand and drag around the edges of my photo that I want to select. Now I can choose, say I come to an area that has a straight edge. And I don't really in this photo, but I'm going to pretend I do right here, that this is a pretty straight edge. I want to switch to my polygonal lasso. So I click, I push the Alt key, and then I let go of the mouse button, and it switches. You can see the cursor switch to the polygonal lasso. I go to the end point of where that straight edge is, click and hold the mouse, let go of that Alt key now, and then continue on my way. Now, another problem you may run into. If I am doing this and I get to the bottom of my mouse pad, what do? Well, I push the Alt key again, let go of the mouse, reposition my mouse, and then click and hold, let go of that Alt key, and continue on my way again. And also, it'll just, when you get to near the end, if you just let go, Photoshop will go ahead and complete the selection for you. Okay, now we're going to try the magnetic lasso tool. So I'm going to click and hold the lasso tool down in the toolbox and go down and select the magnetic lasso. And it changes the look of the cursor as well. There's a little magnet. If you take a look on that cursor, you can see a little magnet. Now, the magnetic lasso tool is best used to select irregularly shaped areas. And as you drag with the magnetic lasso, the selection snaps to areas where it detects high contrast. So in this case, we have a yellow against a white. So I'm going to say select here, and I'm just, see how it's snapping to, and then I can let go on a click and go down, and it's just going to keep going. And everywhere I want to make a turn, I just click with my mouse and then keep going, and there you have it. With the magnetic lasso tool, I have the option to switch to the lasso or the polygonal lasso tool, and it's simple. I've got my magnetic lasso right now, so I'm going to click and start dragging along, and I'm going to let go because I've gotten to my edge there. And now let's say I want to go to my polygonal lasso tool. So I'm going to press Alt and click one time, and it's going to switch me to that polygonal lasso tool. And then I'm going to click back and let go of that Alt key. Now it switches me back to my magnetic lasso. Now, what if I want to go to my lasso tool? Well, with the lasso tool, you're going to use the Alt key again and drag. So I'm going to press the Alt key and I'm just going to drag, and you see it just switches to that lasso. And when I let go of the Alt key, it goes back to my magnetic lasso. So if I want to switch to polygonal, I'm going to hit Alt and click the mouse and then go to where I want it to be. And since I'm to the end here, I'll just go halfway. And then I'm going to click and hold and let go of the Alt key. And then if I want to go to my lasso, I'm going to hold the Alt key down and I'm just going to begin dragging. And there you have it. Now, as you move the magnetic lasso tool through an image to make a selection, points are appearing along, if you recall, as we were doing this. We'll go back just to show you. See the little square points that are appearing along the way? Okay. These points determine the path's shape, and there are several ways to control the points added by the magnetic lasso tool. I can click to specify the first point and then move the pointer along the area that I want to select, and it automatically adds the point to generate the path. But to force the path to continue through a specific location, I can click and add a point. Anytime I click, it'll add a point. If the most recent point appears where I don't want it, I can press Delete or Backspace and it will take it away. To remove all the points and start over, I just press Escape and I can begin again. Also with the magnetic lasso, I have various options that exist. For instance, if you take a look up here at your control panel, you can see with the magnetic lasso, I have feather, anti-alias, I have width, contrast, frequency. The width specifies a detection width, so I enter a pixel value here. The contrast is specifying the lasso sensitivity to edges in the image, so I'm going to enter a value between 1% and 100% for contrast. Frequency, it specifies the rate at which the lasso sets the fastening points, and I can go from 0 to 100 here. And then stylus pressure, while working with a stylus tablet, I can select or deselect the stylus pressure option. And when the option is selected, an increase in stylus pressure decreases the edge width. Now, we've already worked with the polygonal lasso tool just a bit, but right now let's go over and switch by clicking and holding and selecting our polygonal lasso. So I click and the circle, you see the little circle pop up on your cursor, and you go to your next point and click. And then you continue on to your next and click. And then when you get to the end, click and it closes if you're there by your area. You can also double click and Photoshop will complete it automatically. So let's just go 1, 2, here, and there it completed. I didn't even have to draw the last leg of that. As with the other lasso tools, I'm going to deselect now to show you that I can switch temporarily to the lasso tool by clicking or by pressing the Alt key, and then it'll let me just grab it'll just turn into the lasso. Then I can let go, and I'm right back to my polygonal lasso. Let's move on to our quick selection tool. I love this tool. So I'm going to go to my toolbox and click on my quick selection tool. Now remember, the quick selection tool is used to select areas with clearly defined edges. In this case, we do have the flower here. It does have definite clear edges, and it is an odd shape. And I would spend some time with my lasso tool working to get that just right. So instead, I'm going to choose my quick selection tool, and with it, I can change the size of my cursor so that it can be large or small by going up to the top here, and I just click on the drop down arrow, and I can change the size. I can also change the hardness, the spacing, all kinds of options that I have here. Okay, so that's good enough. I'm going to leave it like that. Now, I can go and notice how I just clicked. I clicked one time and it gave me this. Now I can keep filling this out by clicking and holding my mouse, and it's just jumping down there to get those edges. Now look at that. I've clearly selected this. I can then go in and add where I need to, and if I want to take away, I can either go up to the top in my control panel and choose the one with the minus sign. Right now I'm on the plus sign, so I'm adding. Well, I need to take this away because I want to get this green out, let's say. So I click my minus sign. Now, part of the problem is that my choice of size is a little large, so I'm going to drop that down just a bit. See, oh, that's better. Okay, now I can take and go, all right, I need to come up a little bit with that. Now look, I've gotten just about all of that green out, except for maybe right there. I can click one more time and get that out. And now what I need to do is just make it a little more perfect. See this little part here and this little piece here? I need to do something about that. Well, I need to add a little bit. So I'm going to click on Add to the selection, and then I'm just going to push that out just a smidge. And then here, I need to actually take away. So I'm going to go back and click that, but I want to make my cursor size still just a little smaller because now I can just perfect it like that. And I can keep making those adjustments until I get it just right. In this case, I want to do a little minusing there, a little takeaway. And here I want to add just a bit. And I just keep on until I've gotten it just like I want. And when I get it there, there's my selection. Now, what if I don't want to keep going to my control panel to press on the plus, the adding or subtracting from the selection buttons? Well, the Alt key will serve that purpose. Whatever I have, right now I'm on the plus. So whatever I have when I press the Alt, it will be the opposite. And your cursor will reflect that. And I'll tell you what, let me make my cursor large so you can really see that change. Okay? Right now I'm on the plus. You see the little plus inside. But if I press my Alt key, it turns to a minus. So that's a quick way by using my keyboard strokes to help me out with that. Okay, what about the magic wand tool? Well, first of all, I need to go choose it, so I'm going to click and hold and then select my magic wand tool. Now, the magic wand tool is all about selecting an area based on the similarity of pixel color and brightness. So, take a look at my control panel now. Look at the tolerance. Look at the fact that it's contiguous. Now, what I want to do, the higher the tolerance value, the wider the range of pixels that the magic wand will select. Well, in this case, let's say I want to select everything except the blue sky. Well, what I could do there is, because the blue sky looks almost the same throughout, I could select it and then do the inverse. So let's do that. Well, the first thing I do is I check out my tolerance. So it's at 32 right now. I don't know. You kind of have to play with this number. So I'm just going to click in an area, and all the blue looks about the same. So wherever I click in a blue, I'm going to click one time, and then you see what it does. Now, I can then come and do some more of the blue area, and look at that. It just adds it right on. Do they have to be contiguous? Well, it depends on if you check contiguous or not. So in this case, let's uncheck this because What we really want is for it to sample all the blue. And then we can come down and add to by sampling other areas. And look at that. It's gotten everything, basically, that there is. Now, we want to go back up here just to get this corner. Look, notice every time I click up there, it deselects here. Well, that has to do with my tolerance. So what I want to do is I want to give this a little more. Let's put it at 50 and see if that will let me select these more aqua colored areas. And look, it does. Okay, now I've really got my selection there now. But I don't want this blue. I want everything else. So how do I manage that? I simply go to Select, Inverse, or Shift Control I. And now everything but the blue is selected. To go back, again, select Inverse, and there you have it. That's your magic wand tool. Because it's so important, I did want to go over a little more specifically. Obviously, we've talked about tolerance. It decides the similarity or difference between the pixels selected. A value should be entered between 0 and 255. And again, the higher the value, the higher the tolerance. So it's going to get more pixels that are in that range of color. Anti-alias, it's used to create a smoother edged selection. Contiguous, we talked about that. Before I unchecked this, if we had selected this and then we have this part here that's separated by this part of the flower that clearly has no blue in it, it wouldn't let me select it as well. Sample all layers. It's used to select colors using data from all visible layers. Otherwise, the Magic Wand tool selects colors from the active layer only. So if you have multiple layers, and that's in another lesson, but if you have multiple layers and you want to get all of the colors, all of that particular color on every layer, you would definitely check your sample all layers.